Composition today, Ned Rorem for WNYC, 17th of August, 1999. This year marks the 75th birthday not only of WNYC, but of myself. It also marks the 55th anniversary of my first radio broadcast, which took place in these very studios. In February 1944, the pianist David Steimer, librarian for WNYC, launched the American Music Festival, a series of broadcasts by living composers that would occur annually ever after, between Lincoln's and Washington's birthdays. I still have the little flyer which my friend Morris Gold printed up, announcing my own half-hour program to be performed by myself as pianist with 3 women friends, a soprano, a flutist, and a violinist. Today, they have vanished forever, but the festival remains. So what has changed by the end of our century? Well, nothing and everything. Nothing, at least insofar as WNYC is concerned. Our city station has had its ups and downs, but the promotion of live American music still sustains through the yearly celebration and through interviews. Yet, the substance of radio music everywhere now seems to be 99% pop versus 1% classical, and the classical is 99% 19th century and 1% 20th century. The audience for this is not only ignorant adolescents, but cultured adults, which leaves me and my composing brethren out in the cold. There is scarcely any outlet for contemporary classical music, certainly not television, which has largely replaced radio. Let's define terms. Classical really refers to a period in history. It emerged after millenniums of mainly church music, thrived in the court during the 18th century, was nudged into concert halls by the Romantic movement in the 19th century, and by so-called modernism in the 20th. The current comprehensive title still remains, quote, classical, and is distinguished from pop by being invariable, designed for trained artists, and notated in complex forms. Popular music is generally for untrained performers, variable in all senses, not written down, in tight forms, and almost exclusively vocal. The generic term, quote, pop, includes rock, scat, bebop, and dozens of other subterms deriving mostly from singing styles and texts. Some of it, jazz for example, has become almost classical. Some classical music, in turn, is almost popular. Pop music, essentially a music of, quote, the people, for centuries ran parallel to the musics of church and state without the 3 expressions ever merging. Quote, music of the people might be identified as always having the mindless insistence of a steady beat. It keeps workers working, as distinct from the meandering melisma of the cathedral or the, quote, sophisticated rhythms of the court. Today, for the first time ever, pop dominates the globe culturally and financially. In the past 5 years, the situation has worsened. There are fewer than 100 paid classical music critics in the United States. Most respectable periodicals have dispensed with them while retaining pop critics. As for contemporary classical music, it's all but disappeared in the ken of every class. Intellectuals who know all about the other arts, from Giotto to Jackson Pollock, Dante to Philip Roth, when it comes to music, they stop at Verdi with no concept of living music except pop. Yet ironically, there are more young, serious composers around than ever before, really thousands, as opposed to the dozen or so when I was a kid. What's to become of them? My advice, since big orchestras and big publishers and big record distributors don't want you, stay in school as long as you can, and stay chummy with those performers who will otherwise forget you when you're all out in the unreal world. Start your own small publishing and recording companies, and organize your own small touring ensembles, as Britain did in England. What then is the future? People always ask us older composers as though we'd know better than they. The future does not exist. If it existed, it would not, by definition, be the future. Still, there's an anxiety in the question, a question inconceivable 150 years ago when music of the day was the order of the day. Anyone who makes predictions is bound to be wrong. Our main concern lies in the present. The present quality of contemporary classical music, at least in America, is actually pretty good. One might wish there were a larger public, although perhaps the richest experiences are, by their very nature, unavailable to most people.